This guy you don't want to miss. Join us at BloodyMavericks, where sanity takes a back seat. Episode 1 is live. Keegan Burke, COO and co-owner of GFI. You will learn how to buy a business from inside, influence of heritage, working with a family, why we are all in sales, and much, much more. I welcome you to Bloody Mavericks. I'm Matt Mack, and this is Bloody Mavericks. Today on the show, we have a special guest, Keegan Burke.
Nice to be here.
Awesome to have you. Keegan is an owner and an operator of Ground Floor Industries, GFI for shorts.
Yeah.
We know each other from the industry and from my reach out through LinkedIn. Which basically started on, I would say, a year or two ago, something like that.
Yeah, in that range, for sure.
Around there.
Yeah.
And so Keegan have a really, really nice approach, a really nice way of doing things, because I'm following you for quite some time, and I see the projects you guys get involved. I remember actually seeing I think it was an interview in one of the magazines or papers about you starting up a business and growing it to the certain level.
Yes, yeah. That was a business report. They gave us an award, right. I think, a couple of years ago. And they did a whole kind of dialogue on how we started we bought the business roughly 5 years ago and how we grew it to the stage it's at now. So kind of highlighted all the intricacies of how we did it and where we are today. And so to kind of dive into that a little bit more, is that something you want to dive into now?
Let's do that. Let's start with that.
You know, I started my career in the high-rise industry in Calgary. Actually, I did high-rise roofing. So I got into high-rise roofing out in Calgary, and unfortunately, when the oil dropped, I had to scurry on back to Ontario and find a new avenue. So luckily, I joined a small concrete company called Capcrete, and I started there as a sales manager. So selling their services, which was self-leveling, restorations, coatings, things like that.
Okay.
I grew that business for roughly two or 3 years, and then was kind of excited to get out of that company and either start my own thing or see a different avenue in the same industry. So I came across Ground Floor Industries, which at the time was their main competitor. And approached the ownership there, and we struck a deal with me being an employee at that time, not buying the business. So I worked as their contract manager for roughly a year and a half.
Okay.
But with the notion that I was interested to buy the business. So when that opportunity came knocking about a year and a half later, when the sales grew and the business was growing, both me and my father, actually, as my business partner, both of us approached them and we struck a deal. So we bought the business coming up 5 years ago now.
Okay.
And we saw the opportunity when we were buying it, and thank goodness we did, because it's a great business, great company to purchase, because it has a great workmanship, great quality of guys and girls, and great culture within the business. We really saw that opportunity, and we excelled it. So it's been a great avenue.
That's awesome. And so what was the team looking like when you were basically transitioning from, like, obviously you step into the role and you took over, you've been doing sales for a little bit over a year and a half, and then you decided to approach them again and get into
the ownership role. Yeah.
And so how the team looked like when
I switched transitioned into the ownership.
That's right.
You know, when we were striking the deal to purchase the business, most of the there's two segments to our business. There's our site staff and there's the office staff. So the site staff generally was within the business or industry for over 20 years. So we really had a good core, good foundation of the business, and that's something that's a pillar to any business. You've got to sell and promise what you can deliver. So we knew that we could do that. Now, the business wasn't poised for growth. It wasn't. It didn't have the fundamentals within the actual office space to drive that business to growth and expansion. So we saw that that's where me and my father could inject our opinions and our I guess ways of doing things. Expertise, I guess is a good word to say, in order to expedite that growth. And that's what we did. So we changed the office atmosphere. We changed a couple of the positions and structure within the business, and we set it up for that growth. And that's kind of what we did year one, year two, and since year two, it's that structure has held up, and it's been poised for growth ever since.
That's awesome. It seems like you guys had the vision on not only the business itself, but also a internal structure,
right?
As you said, and the way that you approach, like, it's not, from what I'm hearing, is it wasn't much about changing how your boys at the field worked. It was more changing how the business and how you thought about approaching the business and whoever was running.
Correct. Yeah, like we saw the opportunity, number one, within the Toronto market. We saw the high-rise industry. We saw how many people were coming in the field, how many people were leaving the field, and the market share of an allocation of our competitors and us, which GFI had a good chunk of the high-rise market when we first purchased it. So we knew we could grow off that, which was an ever-expanding market at that time. Yeah. So when we structured it that way, we knew that if we had the right people in place, the right right avenue to attack, we knew that we would see success in that. So once you put the foundation of the pillars in place, everything kind of falls into motion, and it's just a perpetual snowball at that point.
Yeah.
And as long as you service the clients, which our workmanship and our quality, which was already there to begin with, we just kind of
build on top
of that, so to speak. And then you have the support of the office and the professionalism behind it. Really, you just have return business, and it just keeps cycling in, because once you service and you're a responsible company, an ethic company, and you provide what you promise, the business keeps coming to you, and you keep growing off of referrals and so on and so forth. So it's a good position to be in.
So how funny that you mentioned the referral part, because I feel, and from my own experience, it's always been the best way to organically grow your own business.
It is.
And from your perspective, like, obviously you've got the sales outreach, you being a salesperson, having that experience before.
Right.
How much of your business right now at this point is based on referrals, and how much is based on?
It's hard to say specifically, because we're doing a lot of business right now. But that being said, there's a lot of big players in the Toronto market. There's a lot of big builders, a lot of the bigger guys, they develop 10 to 12 towers a year, 15 towers, and so on and so forth. So we have a pretty consistent basis with them, as long as we service them properly. The referrals come when that builder has an office space, or has a sales office, or is doing a project partnership, or doing a partnership on another project or site. And then we kind of referral into another developer or a builder because of those partnerships. That's where we see a lot of those transitions happen. And as long as you're doing the work and there's a good word for you, you usually kind of get your foot in the door at least, and be able to prove yourself, and then continue and sustain that relationship moving forward. But again, the referrals are important, but it's also outreach. And that's another section that GFI didn't have before we entered the game. A lot of the social media outlets, a lot of the website, LinkedIn, as we mentioned before, how we met. If you consistently have your company's name and your projects and everything out there, and people are seeing them, that outreach is invaluable.
I definitely see that you guys are doing a great work, because first of all, being in the industry myself and looking at it from a growth perspective, it's definitely a gold pot. So you can just dig in from one project to another. But at the end of the day, you wouldn't be on all of the projects or the main projects, or wouldn't be working with the biggest players in the city, and I know you guys do, if you wouldn't bring up that value, right?
Right, correct. And that's the main part of our business. You can't grow and expand your business without having the quality workmanship, and again, I keep referring back to the promises being delivered, because at the end of the day, if you don't do the work that you're supposed to be doing, or it's not up to the standards, you can sell all you want. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you, and the word gets out that you're not as good as you say you are.
That's right.
And the business starts falling apart. So you have to not only drive to expand your business, but you have to maintain the foundations and the basics of your business, because when you lose that, you lose everything. So you have to keep referring back to that, and making sure that your core group of site staff, your managers, your project managers, your accounting, all the kind of back end house is up to date and working fluidly all the way through to service that expansion.
I understand that it is, first of all, it has been a big process and long process to get to get it implemented. Your vision into a company that you didn't build from scratch, so you basically took over after some time. But in the other sense, or from the other side, it's you guys definitely hit the bullseye on it.
Yeah, it was the company before we bought was a declining business. It was a failing business when we entered it, but we saw the opportunity where to take it. So it was a risk to buy the business for sure, and both me and my father knew that going into it, and we were a few sleepless nights at the beginning. Let's just put it that way, and a few more gray hairs over the last couple of years, but. We always had a goal in mind. We always knew where we could take it. And as long as we stayed focused and stayed driven, we knew that we would be able to achieve it. So, referring back to the original decision to do it, it's been a long process. It's been a arduous one. It's been a lot of meetings, a lot of stressful times, a lot of looking at the bank accounts, making sure there's pennies in there to pay everybody. But when you come out of the other side, it's a little bit of a euphoria of those hard times and getting through the roller coaster of what business is, to kind of see your plans come to fruition.
Yeah, the ups and downs and all the hardships and all the challenges basically pay off, and you see the moment of when it comes back to you tenfold, right?
Yeah, well, we bought the business a couple of years before the pandemic too, so that was, those type of things you don't even know are possible or can hinder the business. And luckily, it didn't hinder ours too much in the Toronto market because development didn't really slow down.
That's true.
There was definitely some hardships through it with people and availability and logistics and things like that, and obviously all the inflation of all the pricing. But for the most part, building didn't stop, which we were very lucky, knock on wood, that we could keep working. So yeah, those hardships, looking back on it, but through those hardships, it builds a stronger business as well, because then you're ready for whatever's next to come. You've already got protocols in place. You already know how to get through those hardships. So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time when you're going through it. But looking back, it builds a stronger business.
Yeah, 100%, and it builds you as a stronger leader as well when you need to go through all of that, and kind of at the end of the day you need to figure it out where the money gonna come from, or 100%. Where who you gonna speak next to get the jobs lined up for your people, because at the end of the day you are like, as a business owner, and from my own experience, you are wearing not one hat. You are not a CEO, you are not just a person who is making deal happen.
No, you wear all hats, and it's been a learning process for me since the beginning as well. And I've got a big mentor with my father being my partner, so he's been through a lot of what I've already been through, or what I'm going through now. So it's a good shoulder to lean on when I need some advice or kick in the ass sometimes as well. But it's been a learning curve for me as well, from switching from contracts manager / sales. Into an ownership role, but still trying to maintain the sales and do all the sales side as well. And then, as you said, you also have to do the sales and the back end, but you also have to think about the future and where you want to land and where you want to start. So you're thinking about all factors, and you're trying to do that at all times, which is stressful, but that's what you sign up for.
Yeah, there are multiple roles that you need to fill in all the time, right?
There is.
What I want to come back or circle back after we're gonna dive in right now in what we got here, starting from your basically cultural background.
Yes.
I'm gonna start talking, but I want to circle back to you and your father doing business together,
Sure.
and where that came from,
Sure.
and also a sales side. So let's do that just after this part. So
Sure.
Keegan, you told me that you are a Canadian,
I am. Yes.
and you've got Ukrainian and Irish background.
I-
Where that lands?
So my father's side of the family is Irish.
Okay.
So that's where I get the Irish from. His father was from Ireland, so that's where I get the Irish from. I was born in Canada. My father was born in Canada, but his father was born in Ireland. Then my mother was born here as well, born
Okay.
in Canada. Her father was born in Ukraine.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
He was kind of Ukraine and Poland at the time, but jumping back and forth, and then came over here.
At that part of the world, there are a lot of people who are connected on every every side of the
It's
border.
a little bit confusing for me to hear the stories at certain times, but at that time I think there was a lot of border jumping and coming over to Canada.
Yeah, awesome. So, as I mentioned on the beginning, it's with Irish in Toronto. It's a little bit complicated to get kind of a glimpse into a food culture, because that's how for me myself personally, this is how I go about starting to learn about the culture, because it shows a lot.
Right.
So what we have here is couple dishes. Correct me if I'm wrong. We've got some borscht. We've got palushki, which is potato kind of gnocchi.
Gnocchi, or gnocchi, how
That's
do you pronounce it? But
And we've got basically a potato cake as well.
That's what I call it. I don't know if that's culturally acceptable or not, but my Christmases and Thanksgiving, we call them potato cakes.
Okay, cool. And we've got the papushki.
Yes, and that's the Ukrainian garlic bread, correct? Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
Exactly. And for the Irish side, we've got
none other but the Guinness.
The Guinness,
you got it.
One of the best ones.
It is.
Cheers.
Oh, that's good.
Dive in and let me know what you think.
Yeah, for sure.
How my blind guess came.
And is that sour cream on the side?
It is.
Okay. You can't go wrong with that.
No, you can't. And they add sour cream to basically everything, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good. That's really good. And this is from a place on Lakeshore.
It is. Yeah, I really like it. It's basically a barrel house korchma on Lakeshore in Toronto.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm definitely going back there to have a
No, I
bite.
think I might do a visit myself.
Do you have any other places that you like? Oh, let's start there. Do you have any places that you would go for Irish food in Toronto?
That's a good question. There's a bunch of Irish pubs all over the city. James Gate down on Dundas is a good one. But it's more or less fish and chips and stews and trying to think of another Irish one. I mean, there's so many pubs that you visit, but it's usually a lot more drinking than eating when you go there. In terms of like Ukrainian / Polish food, my mother always used to got. There's no. It's a church that used to be down in Bobby Point.
Okay.
And they used to do all these like full pierogies, and it's only around Christmas time and all that. So we'd get big full trays of the pierogies, mashed potatoes with the breadcrumbs on top, and kind of a bunch of the different fixings for Christmas. And I don't know what exactly the church name is. I'd have to refer to my mother for that, but it was always really good, really good.
Yeah, let me know when you check it out. I definitely want to.
Yeah, I'll definitely pass you on that information because it's and it's only seasonal, I think. I think they're actually part of the Ukrainian festival as well on in the springtime, but definitely something to try.
How you like it so far?
Really good. Really, really good. I'm going to dig into the, what's this called? Papushka again?
Papushki, yeah.
Papushka.
Or palushki, I think. Yeah, because it's like, I think the name is relatable in Polish, or in Russian as well. Palushki is basically like small fingers.
Okay.
So I guess that's
where they get it from. It looks like small fingers.
Yeah, I guess.
My accountant, in-house accountant, she's Ukrainian. She's actually just going back to Ukraine.
Wow! Now?
Yeah. Well, she flies out on Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's selling her selling a house out there or something like that with her family. So she's got to go out there for a few months, and she would. She'd be proud of me eating all this.
That's cool.
Yeah. No, it's really, really, really good.
Awesome. Then the blind guess was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you hit it.
Good to hear. So while we are talking, don't stop, just go at it. Why we are starting on that note is because, as I mentioned, the culture is pretty nice thing to discover through food, and it kind of transmits what's in the culture itself, what's really represents what's really deep in the culture as well. And it was my blind guess, and like I like it.
No, this resonates with me, and it's when you come from a colder climate culture, and you've got the soups, and you've got the hot food and the potato cakes, it's something about that comfort that brings people together around that time, which is I think a lot of the cultures or a lot of the backgrounds that have the colder dampness, you've got the soups, the stews, and things like that get you through those winter months that are important.
I would definitely agree on that. And just on that note, since we are on the food, what are your like main dishes, or what you grew up with, or what your parents were showing you?
Well, that's we're a big barbecue family, let's put it that way. My parents own a cottage, and throughout the summer months, my father's a big barbecue guy, and he cooks a lot inside, so we're usually big steaks, sausages, chicken, big salads, pierogies, kind of just I hate to say the normal, but the norm in Canada, which is like kind of the three food groups: chicken, beef, and sides, really, at that point.
On your mother's side, though?
My mother's side is more the Polish side, right? So it's the pierogies, the potato cakes. My grandmother was a big cook as well. So the turkey at Christmas with all the fixings around it. She made her own jams, her own treats, her a bunch of little trinkets here and there that we all loved. Strawberry, blueberry jams, and I forget what it was called. It was kind of a cinnamon dish as well. Cream of wheat my mom used to make, which is kind of an odd dish, but butter and cinnamon on top. That's what we used to have as kids. Just a little bit of everything. We don't really say no to much, but we're a big outdoor family when in the summertime months. So sitting around the outside, sitting around the barbecue, drinking wine and cooking steaks is kind of my love and passion.
Your gem.
Yes, yeah, exactly. my diamond in the rough. Let's call it.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, a big steak on the grill really gets me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will remember that. I will probably ask you later on after the show for some recommendations.
For sure.
You are definitely
Yeah. I've got a lot.
That's good. And when thinking about your heritage and your background, we dove into my assumption, which was the food, but just building on top of that, thinking on how you been raised and how you went about your life, and basically both sides of the family, and even I would say a third part being Canadian. What are the 1 to 3 things that you think from your background, your growing up and the way you've been raised helped you in your professional life, in your career, in the way you are as a person?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer in full detail, but or specific details. I grew up in a joint family. I've got 2 sisters. I've got 2 parents that are together. Grew up very strong family values and support. So when you've got the support, you've got the family unit together, it's important. And I think that grows as you get older too as well. When you get into your professional life, you've always got kind of a shoulder to lean on and guide you in the right way, or give you pointers, and when you're screwing up, kind of kick you back on the good side. And so I think that, I'm a really strong believer in family structure. I think just like any business, when we were talking about before, having the foundations of the business in order to have it expand and excel, you've got to have the same thing in the family unit. You've got to have everybody on the same page, working together, everybody there to support one another through thick and thin. And once you have that, then I think you're set up, whether you have arguments or tough times or anything like that. As long as you've got those basics down, you can get through anything. And that transcribes right into business as well, because just like family life, just like business, you're going to go through tough and good times. You're going to go through it all. It's a roller coaster of life. But as long as you get through the bad, you'll make it to the good.
So basically, it seems like you... one of the main important thing is basically having that main principles that are aligned. Correct. This way, if you are going through any kind of trouble or there are different things, outside factors that's gonna force you to do things in a new way, unique way, or even in the easiest way, you just gonna get angry at something and get stressed. It's at the end of the day, going back to those base values will always align the whole
there's 2 factors to that as well. I mean, having a support system is crucial, but also having the support system also guide you to be your own person and make your own decisions as well is important, right? You can have something to fall back on, but if you always fall back on it, you're kind of leaning on somebody else to kind of dictate your future.
That's right.
Excuse me. So as long as they're guiding you in the right direction to be the best person you can be as an individual, then you can have a family, you can support your family and everything. But you have to be able to make your own decisions. You have to go through the stress and through the trials and tribulations of life on your own. And make the right decisions at the right time. Everybody makes wrong decisions. Everybody makes right decisions, right? But as long as you can kind of facilitate that on your own, then you can support other people and support them in the right way. If you can't do it on your own, you shouldn't be supporting anybody else or giving them advice, right?
I agree. 100%.
So as long as you've got your own individuality, but you also have the foundation of the support, I think that's an important, crucial thing in life.
So how would you go about basically finding that fine line in between those 2 things, being kind of responsive and relying on everything that you learn from your family, or the family values, or those even cultural values that you basically rely on, and the family unit even, and then defining how far can you go on your own, and kind of how far can I derail from that base.
Well, I think you've got to have your morals and ethics in line, number one, and that's got to align with family or your business. You've got to know those basic core values, because you can't deviate from that. Now, once again, I have other factors in terms of the individuality and kind of finding your own stride. People can give you advice on how to do things or what you should do, but you've also got to. You also got to think, is that the right thing to do for me? Because you might have a different outlook or a different avenue that you want to take than somebody else wants you to take. So you have to differentiate what's advice or what's kind of a directional opinion based kind of guidance. So once you can kind of challenge it, at least in your own mind, challenge what everybody's saying at least a little bit and think it through. I think that will create your individuality, but as long as you have those basic core values and you're not swinging off those, because you got to have those just to be a normal civilized person, to be honest. But without taking a risk or without kind of chasing those boundaries, you're not going to excel as a human being either. You got to fail. You got to make mistakes. Without that, you're kind of stuck in the same position as you were the previous day.
So it sounds like you are a proponent of going outside of your comfort zone and kind of figuring it out.
How'd you come to that conclusion?
Right.
Yes, I typically go outside my comfort zone quite a bit. I've been kicked in the ass a few times because of that.
I would start with sales, like that's every day kicking butt,
exactly.
right? So
you've got to go outside your comfort bubble. You have to through anything, business, family, whatever it may be. You've got to get outside your bubble a little bit, but you also got to bring it back to the humble beginnings and remember what you're trying to achieve at least. But again, it comes back to like you don't get any growth. You don't get any. You're not moving forward in life if you're not challenging things. You're kind of standing still. Like simple things of even doing a podcast or
that's right.
Taking a shot in the park. You're not going anywhere further than you were the day before.
I completely agree on on going outside of that comfort and finding the new ways and finding new situations where you are challenging yourself to grow. Mm-hmm. Like I remember there was probably it's not a direct quote, but it's something along the lines that when you stop learning, you start dying. I think it was from Einstein, if I'm right, but I try to follow that and always like whether it's a personal life or professional, like always push myself that one more time, right?
Yeah. That one more call or that one more message or going the extra mile on this one little bit, staying in the office 1 extra hour or showing up on one extra site that day just in case. There's so many times even in the sales side of things, I'd be driving around on the roads and I would just see a crane and I would stop in and just give a flyer, and it turns out I get a year's worth of business from doing that, and it would be the last call of the day or what have you. And it's funny how kind of, I hate to say karma or what it may be, but it always seems when you do that extra little push, something gives you a little something back, right? It's almost like in golf, you have 100 bad shots in the day, but you hit one that's close to the pin, you're showing up to the golf course the next day because you love golf at that point. Right. So it's this kind of same kind of analogy when it comes to personal growth. I think you always got to push that little extra a little bit.
So on that note, let's go into the unwrapping the different and unwrapping the Maverick with you. You told me how you went about getting a business and acquiring it, going through the sales on the competitor side and moving over to GFI and doing it for them, and then acquiring the company yourself. And how would you say that your approach is different, or how would you say that you are different as an individual and as a business owner? And and Maverick?
You know, I'm a firm believer that everybody has a Maverick in them. That's to begin with. I think it just needs to be pushed out of them some way. Sometimes through pain or through stress or through grievance or something like that. Sometimes you have to push through it all to get to that next step. Now, in my case, I was always hungry for more. I always wanted to be at the top. I always wanted to own my own business. I always wanted the fruits of my labor, let's call it. I always wanted that. I saw that very early on in life. You know, going to private school and things like that, I saw the other side of life that was something that I wanted to achieve and quickly. So, you know, from a young age, I always wanted to go that extra mile and try to make it happen. So, you know, going from I was a general labor when I started in construction. I was digging waterproof pits and laying hot rubber. You know, taking it from that to where I am now, I think it was more or less just drive and persistence that did it. Now, when it comes to individuality and how I got there, I don't really take no for an answer. I think that's you know, a key factor. A lot of, especially on the sales side. I remember a lot of my early clients. No, we got a guy that can do it. So then I'd show up the next day with a box of donuts, or, you know, then I'd show up 2 weeks later with a couple of my pens and just say, hey, and I wouldn't stop showing up. And I think that's when they start seeing, okay, this guy's either a lunatic or he's really wants that business. And, you know, that comes back to the persistence and the hunger that you have to have, and you have to be able to take rejection well enough to keep it going.
It is actually beautiful to see how the journey is kind of similar to majority of us or majority of people who are kind of going after as you nicely put it, fruit of your own labor.
Yeah.
And I would say also being your own boss and deciding for yourself what those fruits will be.
Yes. Yeah.
And how you show up, but also how your business will show up, because it's not, at the end of the day, it's not only you personally 100%. That need to show up, but the whole organization, all the structure, every single person 100%. from labor on the job site to foreman and supervisor to accountant and and the warehouse worker, right?
Yep, exactly. And that's, you know, I use fruits of my labor because, you know, that's different for everybody. And actually, you hit a nail on the head, having the freedom, you know, not only let's call it financial freedom, but having the freedom to go to the cottage early on a Friday afternoon, to, you know, go to your kid's baseball game that day and without having to call in and make sure it's okay with the boss, you know.
That's right.
Those are all factors that come into play when you want to be your own boss or you want to own your own business. The freedom of choice, let's call it, that's truly the fruits of the labor when you come down to it. The freedom to do what you want at that time. You know, whether that be a business-oriented, family-oriented, whatever it may be, but having the ability to choose what you want to do is important. It's something I wanted to strive for.
I bet it's sometimes it's challenging to have people that you work with also understand that you are not just the boys, not the boss, not the top figure, top dog at the top of the ladder, who's just doing looking nice and picking up the fruits.
No.
It's kind of really hard way to convey through the ranks of your business.
It is difficult, but you know, we've created a great culture within our business where everyone has a say. Everyone in our business, from our logistics manager to our operation managers to our site staff to our general laborers, everybody can call me at any point of the day. You know, I'm never not available. You know, they all have a say in how the business is run or what their job specifically should be doing or how it should be done. We're not there to micromanage. We're there to create a culture that the company excels itself. If I have to micromanage, then then there's something wrong from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 all the way down, right? There's a broken chain in the link that needs to be addressed, because at the end of the day, the company's got to be a well-oiled machine all the way through in order to run and keep running. So we have an open culture in our business, which is a family-run business. We like it to feel like a family through and through our entire company. Everyone has a voice and say, and I think even as the company expands, you've got to hold on to that for as long as you can, because once an employee becomes a number, they don't have the passion for the business anymore.
I truly agree with that. What would be the number one thing that you're trying to do to, like, because at the end of the day, you need to encourage your workers to, they know that they can speak out, but you need to encourage them to actually do it, come and say what they think, because there are a lot of people who at the end of the day will not
speak their word.
Not speak their word. So what's the one thing that, or a couple things maybe, that you guys are doing to kind of keep that culture alive?
Well, I think you got to make people comfortable. That's the first part, because as you said, nobody's going to speak up in an uncomfortable environment or a kind of an ownership based tell-all kind of structure. We're really fluid with everybody. Usually me and my father will talk to everybody in the mornings. We'll go individually to all their offices. Hey, how you doing? How's the kids? Light conversation to begin with is creating that environment of open ability, because you got to be friends as well, not just coworkers, because you spend almost more time with your coworkers than your family at some point. So you got to create a comfortable environment. Secondly, when somebody does speak up, you've got to address it, because as soon as they speak up and it's not addressed or it's not talked about, then they won't say anything again, because obviously it wasn't addressed or it wasn't important enough to be talked about. So you've got to address all aspects that come to your ear and make sure that it's dealt properly and they're heard. Those are two main factors for me is those two. But our structure too, a lot of our site staff are on site. So it's tough to see, up to 100 site guys that we got going on right now. It's tough to see all them individually. That's a whole different beast in itself. So we kind of transitioned into our project managers and our operational managers and our finishers to try for them to have that open ear and for when it needs to get to us. So again, it just transcends downwards and make sure that everybody's kind of following that openness protocol all the way down. And if somebody isn't, and if somebody is hard on them, then that's something that I have to bring them in and discuss that with them, because you don't want to have that type of business that looks down on its employees. That'll smash any business to pieces.
I would definitely agree on that. And you need to have that humane side to anybody, but to the business itself as well, right?
You do.
And it's awesome that you guys are trying to think about it as a family as well.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's not just a family, like everybody's like, we are here a family, and the employees
we have our trials and tribulations all the way through. We do, and that's what keeps it interesting. But I think if you have those core values and those don't change, at least you get resolution. A problem without resolution is just a problem. So you got to make sure that it's solved one way or the other. Where both parties usually when both parties feel like they lost something, that usually means a win. But you've got to have a resolution. You can't have anything overhang.
I would circle back to you doing a business with your father and coming to that point. Like, first of all, why a concrete business? Was it a choice, or was it a accident that you end up in the concrete business and finishing? And again, how you end up going from there and wanting to buy a business to making a partnership with your own father?
It's an interesting one. So concrete wasn't really a choice. it kind of fell into place. I was actually doing the roofing side and on the high rise, and wanted to stick in the high rise, especially in the Toronto market. So anything that had to deal with that, I saw a great avenue just because of the size of the market here. So concrete kind of came to the first step in my mind when I thought, okay, there's a lot of concrete going up in Toronto, so that's a good market to get into.
Yep.
So that's how I started in that, and I kind of I had about an 8-year career in concrete before actually buying the business. Now, how my father came into the play, my father's ran businesses his whole career. He's got a lot of experience in managing large businesses and managing the office and how it's structured and things like that, which at the time was not really my skill set. My skill set was the sales side and selling the jobs. So when it came time for the opportunity to buy the business, I needed. It was a sizable business when we bought it, but where I wanted it to go and where I envisioned it, I needed some support. And at the time, I was talking to my father about it for probably a year before it happened, and I remember we were sitting at the cottage, sitting on a stair at the cottage, and it came up, and I said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And let's try it. So it kind of came at that point. When we struck the deal. He totally left his previous industry, which was printing. He was in printing beforehand. So this was a completely different industry than what he was used to. But, the business structure doesn't change much from industry to industry. So I knew that his expertise and his knowledge would blossom in this type of scenario. So we knew that we had a great partnership in regards to the sales I would look after and the business structuring and things like that. He would kind of take the lead on. And then, 4 years later, we're both meshed into both roles and enjoy going to work every day. Sometimes working with a family member can be...
That's the other thing I want to ask about.
Yeah, can be a different experience, but me and my father have got a pretty good understanding of each other. We've got a great working relationship, great relationship in general. So it's been seamless. It's been great. It's, he's my mentor and everything. So to work with him every day is a blessing. It's an absolute blessing. And, I think the relationship grows when you spend that much more time with everybody. That's right. You become very close. And so it's good. It's good all around. And we're just so excited for what's to come.
As you said earlier, it's like you are spending so much time at work that you are become a family with people that you work with, which is pretty amazing that you can build on top of relationship that you already have with your father. Exactly. And it doesn't work for everybody.
It does not work for everybody. No. And that was some of the early conversations we had. If this goes kerplunk, what's our play here? But no, we've got a great understanding of each other. We know each other very well, and what our flaws and positives are, and what the other's thinking. So, through the hardships already in the business, there's not much more that can happen badly over the last few years. So coming out of that is a pretty good sign that we can continue working with each other. And I want to. It's a great working relationship, and a relationship in general. Yeah,
you guys are doing a great job. It's like seeing how your business grows and progresses, and that you're adding a next great big partner to your list of clients, which is amazing. Again, how many years you are owning the business?
We're coming up on 5 years.
Yeah, in 5 years you grew it to substantial levels.
In 5 years, we've almost 5 times the business.
Wow!
So we've almost doubled. We've almost doubled the business every year.
That's amazing, and that's the support which you probably need doing it with someone too.
Yes,
because at the end of the day, how are you going to push so hard by yourself and only by yourself?
That's right. Yeah, and you need somebody with kind of a background in that to get you through those years. And when you're focusing on not only the expansion, but as we talked about earlier, those basics and the restructuring. You can't do it all by yourself, especially on a sizable business like ours. You've got to have not only that, I've got a young family too as well. So that's a whole other factor to that as well. But you've got to have somebody else with the same risk, let's call it, because any business owner has risk assessment, let's call it. You've got to have somebody in your corner that can make decisions based on the same motivations you do.
This is a nice segue to you doing sales, and I want to figure it out how, because you mentioned earlier that you do another call, you stay another hour, you go to another job site and leave another leaflet or whatever it might be. But is there anything specific that you want to share that as a
Maverick.
professional Maverick, professional salesperson, because that's at the end of the day, selling is like, not everybody realizes, but everybody is in sales some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you're right.
A lot of people will say no, I never want to work in sales, but if you take a step back, it's like
Everybody sells something every day, whether it be yourself or whether it be a product. You're selling yourself every day.
That's right. So is there anything in particular, the way you do, like thinking about how you approach new clients, new customers, or even existing ones, is there anything specific that you do every single time?
I treat, I don't like to call it sales calls. I don't like to call it a sales pitch. When you've got us, bring it back to the basics, when you're going to deliver what you promise, you're not really selling, you're just kind of telling a story. So every call I treat it like I'm talking to my best friend. Hey, how you doing? How are things with you? Get to know them, get to know what their problems are, and make sure that you're the solution for those problems, because they're not going to buy anything from you if you're not a solution. You're just filling their ear. So you've got to make sure you're talking, number one, to the right person. So you got to target your market. You got to target who you're going to sell to, who needs you, who doesn't need you. So once you focus down those arrows, then you focus in on who you're going to speak to directly. And then once you're in that room or on the call with them, it's nonchalant, just like how we're talking right now. You kind of dig into their culture. You dig into their family life. You dig into who they are as a person. And then you can kind of get little tidbits of the working side of things and say, okay, I hear what your problem is there. Maybe try this solution. And it doesn't always happen right away. You've got to, it comes back to that persistence. You've got to make sure that you stay in touch with them. You got to stay there every call, once a month, whatever it may be. And then when the time is right, and they'll make that call, whether the time is right, you'll get that call, and it's not selling at that point. You're just, what people sometimes say, being in the right place at the right time. But you make sure that you set it up that way.
That's right. I would also add to that sometimes, even if that person cannot give you business, they will think about you, and they will recommend you to someone else 100%. Just to, like, I had so many situations where someone is calling me, and it's like, is it Matt? Yeah, it is Matt. And who is this? I'm so-and-so. I got your number from that person. At this point, I don't remember that person already who recommended me, because we didn't do business. So there was some kind of relationship,
type of connection at some point.
Something happened, but in the same time, it's like it's coming back. So definitely, I did something right.
Yeah, and that comes back to it. Like it's, I've had some jobs where, as you said, I totally forget that conversation happened, and I forget when it was, where it was. But then it comes full circle, and as long as you give that right impression of not being that salesman, quote unquote, it usually comes around at some point. So, and even if it doesn't, at least you've got your name in somebody's ear, and expansion in terms of your awareness.
That ties nicely to a next part, which I always felt is important in my own life, in people's life. First time I learned how to set goals, which was it is a peculiar example, but I remember I was reading some kind of motivational book, and the guy suggested to kind of draw out a line and put out or build a vision of your ideal partner on the piece of paper.
Okay.
And I remember putting down both physical, whatever is inside, how the person is feeling,
Right.
and I remember forgetting about it and leaving it on my computer. And fast forward 4 years, sitting in the middle of the night doing my accounting for my company, just opened the app Evernote with the old note I had, just reading it. I started literally crying because I was basically my future wife was sleeping on the couch in front of me, and I realized that this
It was identical to what you wrote down.
came to
full
fruition.
circle.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so basically my question to you after this long introduction to it, how you approach and execute goals. What are the goals, or do you set them for yourself, your business, and how you go about that?
It's for me, it's hard to say setting goals. I think I have a pathway that I like to achieve. Setting say financial goals or anything like that, I think is in the wind for me. It's more or less the pathway I want to take to get there, or at least lining me up for the success. So in terms of business, how am I going to get, $40-50 million in sales? How am I going to get to $100 million in sales?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I need a staff this big to get to that. I need to service this to get to that. I need to make this many calls a day to get to that. So it's kind of breaking it down from your bigger goal into the smaller goals in order to achieve that big one.
Okay.
So I write it down the same way that you just said. I write down, okay, I want to make this many sales this year. I want a 30% increase in sales from quarter one to quarter two, or over year, make 100% expansion. Then we start breaking it down to the smaller things. Okay, well, month one, are we seeing a 10% increase in month one? Okay, we're not seeing a 10% increase, so month two we got to hit 20 because we got to build it up.
That's right.
So you kind of break it down to those smaller goals, and if you're not achieving it, then it's fine. You don't stress over not achieving it over a small amount of time because you see the progress at the end of the year, or 2 years, or 3 years, or 10 years for that matter. So writing them down is important. Knowing your path is important. And the execution part, it comes back to, again, what we talked about before, is just persistence. As long as you've got the persistence is I think any goal is achievable as long as you get your head down and stay with it. Everybody veers off course. Everybody goes through that cycle like we talked about before. But as long as you keep on the same path that you originated, I think that's important.
It is, and it makes a whole lot of sense when you look at your goals, as you said yourself. Basically, it is kind of reverse engineering. It is kind of dividing and putting it into smaller chunks, smaller pieces. This way you have a bigger picture of what it takes to get to where you have to go. Yeah. And in the same time it's way more achievable too.
Exactly. Yeah, if you hit the little smaller milestones, at least you're climbing the ladder, so to speak, right?
That's right. So transitioning from the business world, from all the sales or all the growing up the business, and you guys have a great story, doing it so fast, which is really amazing to see, and just to cheer you from the sidelines. And
well, I appreciate that. You're very kind.
I have seen you guys and your trucks around the city just a little bit a couple of years back. Now it's getting more and more, whatever.
more consistent.
Oh yeah, which is great. And but circling back to your culture and whatever is on that front for you, like the background part that we were talking on the beginning, and how is there anything fun besides obviously the business can be fun. Don't get me wrong, a lot of times business is super fun, and especially with person like yourself and you guys getting your goals and doubling the business size every year, it must be fun. But in the same time, knowing your background and knowing the parts of the world that your family is coming from, is there anything in particular that you still want to discover?
Oh, I think, yeah. I mean, this is just one blimp in my life story, right? I mean, it's hard to say what I want to discover because I think that just kind of comes as time goes. I mean, I've got a young family, got a wife, and so, living through them too, I think is the next stage, right? Living through the kids and what they want to do or what their goals are and things of that, which I'm very excited about. Seeing my external family, like my sister's got kids, my younger sister's getting married this year, so kind of seeing those two families blossom on their own. My wife's side of the family, kind of seeing them grow. All of that encompassing is I think what those next fun years are. It's a tough age group from 20 to 40. When you're building your businesses or building your financial goals or your house buying and properties and things like that, it's a stressful time, or building your family from young kids to teenagers. And you kind of lose yourself in a way in those years. So I think the next stage of I call it getting over that hump. I think that's kind of the blissfulness of what's to come, or the peace, it's and that's the kind I'm looking forward to, sitting on the dock and seeing my kids jump on the water or jump on the water slide, or having their friends up, or going down to Florida with the kids, seeing my kid play golf, or or taking a cruise with my wife, whatever it may be. I think those are the fun years that are coming up, which I really look forward to. And on the business side, I mean, who knows? The business can change next year for all we know, right? More opportunities. If we keep having success, then we build our business. I mentioned earlier that we started a secondary business, so building that one up to hopefully success, which we're the founders of. Starting that off slow, trying to build an empire as fast as I can, but as patiently as I can at the same time. So it's who knows, but I'm excited for it, whatever it may be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just looking back on whatever you have learned and your story and your connection and working with your father as well, are there any financial things that you would like to know earlier, and I don't know, tricks of a trade or tax strategies, incentives?
I can't divulge too much now, but you've got to have well, it depends on what business you're in and what you're trying to build. I mean, in our industry, it needs a lot of funding. So you've definitely got to have a strong relationship with a bank, or somebody that's funding you to get you off the hop, because it's an expensive thing to get into. And if you're getting a different business that you don't need funding, you should have a mentor. You should have somebody that has gone through something similar, something that, or somebody you can lean on or get advice from to kind of get you through those first years, because the first couple of years of owning any business they're tough. They're very tough years.
That's right.
From tricks of the trade, I think you've got to focus in on the basics first. Like the basics, and people get away. They think that, I'm going to grow this business, exponentially, and year 1, year 2, year 3, but they forget about the basics of the business. And whoever's a good client, keep that good client. Don't lose the good clients because you're not servicing them and you're chasing after new business. Service your good clients, create relationships, take them out for dinners. Create a friendship through those relations. And really, that's what kind of blossomed our business. My father and me have a same mentality when it comes to that. where you have to build a friendship and you have to build a relationship in order to have a business relationship. So we try to get that done first and get those pillars set, and then you build the business relationship after.
Awesome. It's you need to have the basics first, the pillars, as you said, which is pretty important to kind of get your foot in the door even, right?
You got to have the integrity, because nobody's without the ethics and integrity, nobody's going to believe you.
100%. On a note of discovery and still being around here, do you think like you have a tribe around you?
I do, yeah, for sure. You're talking about like just like family and support tribe?
Family support, but also friends or business partners, or someone that basically whatever comes through in business life, in personal life, you can reach out and how about this? Would
100%. And that comes back to just relationships in general, from my friends to my family to business relations. I've got a large network of people for any type of problem or question or advice I would require. I can usually pick up the phone and pick a pretty good person that can give me the right advice for. And that's what anybody has. Anybody can go out and network and find that outer circle, so to speak, that they can reach out to anytime, and go to networking events, go to even traveling, talk to people, go sit on the beach, go talk to the bartender, go talk to the waiter. The best advice sometimes from the person you least expect it from. So always just put yourself out there, and that's something that I try to do at all times. Is just put yourself out there and create that outer ring.
That's
so yes, I think that's very important.
It is super important, but in the same time, like having that network and having that tribe of people that you can rely on and ask any question. Is there anything in particular that you would do to a member of that group for them kind of to feel that they belong more?
Oh, that's an interesting question. You've got to touch base with people. I mean, to ask for advice and not talk to them for a long time doesn't seem like advice. It seems like more of a favor. So you've got to keep people close. You got to keep people entangled in you, and got to keep people knowing what your intentions are, whether it be business, whether it be family, whether it be intimate, whatever it may be. Yep. They got to be comfortable with you and know who you are and what you're asking for, because they got to know what the outcome of that advice is. If it's something you're going to use against somebody else, or if it's actually for personal growth, whatever it may be, I think they got to be comfortable giving you the advice. So I think just keeping those relationships strong is just talking to them a lot, being social. Once you become antisocial, then there's a lot more questions or red flags going up when you do make that call. I think that's kind of the answer I've got for that question.
Staying connected and being social and caring about the other person.
You've got to care about the other person, and you've got to be aware of what their needs are as well. You've got to know what different people have different psychology. Different people have different needs. People react differently to things. And it's been a roller coaster for me to realize that as well. You've got to be in depth or intact with what somebody else is thinking about your reactions or actions, what they cause, what they don't cause, and how people are going to react to them. You got to be aware. And that's more of a self-awareness thing as well. Not caring what other people think, or not caring what what someone else's opinion is. I think when you have self-love and self-awareness, those factors kind of go out the window, and you just keep chugging along.
It takes a lot actually to have that self-awareness and being present with yourself and knowing yourself enough to kind of sometimes stop yourself.
Yeah.
Just literally stop yourself and think for a moment, hey, are you doing the right thing right now, or should you do it a little bit differently?
Exactly.
It's in my opinion, it's way easier to talk to other person and see their mistakes or their way of doing things that could be adjusted than your own.
100%. Self-reflection is a key factor in life in general. There's no specific to that. I think you have to reflect on your actions and what they've caused, or what your future actions will do, if it's a choice that you're making. You have to take all consideration when making choices, and I think that comes with emotional maturity. It comes with events happening to you that change that perspective. I think you've got to be aware of what the actions you do cause or are going to cause. And I think once you have that awareness, I think you make a little more educated decisions, or a little bit less irrational decisions, let's call, more frequently, right? Or less frequently, let's call it less frequently.
Yeah, it's basically building on whatever you already have, you already learned, and just applying it in daily life, in your existence, in your work, in personal life. On that note, is there anything that outside of the work, outside of the personal life, is there any way that you feel like you are or you would be giving back to the community?
Yeah, we started a few years back, actually. We're a lot of the developers, a lot of the builders have their own charities, which we partnered with a few. We donate to sick kids every year. We've donated to, I think it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. There was a school that did all these paintings, and then they went up and it was to support the homeless. So you buy the paintings and it supports the homeless. So we did a lot of that. There's a lot of fundraisers that go on through the TCA, Toronto Construction Association, that we're part of. It's important, if you've got the ability to do so, I think you gotta help the people that need it most. Because you never know, you might be in the position.
Right.
You might need the help.
Right.
It might change somebody's life for the better. Rather than buying that new couch for the office, that could be a couch for somebody that really needs it. Something like that. It's important to give back year in, year out.
Yeah, I think the giving back part very often comes back to you tenfold or hundredfold, and you cannot even associate the events happening. Is just naturally the way one would say a god or universe acts, and how it goes about. So I've got a couple easier or harder ones.
Questions.
We'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
What question would you like to be asked more often?
What question would I like to be asked more often? Ooh, that's a pretty broad answer. What question would I like to be asked more often? I don't really know the answer to that. I'm kind of stumped on that one, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm more the guy that answers the questions.
Okay. Yeah.
I think but when asked the question, it's more or less I think you got to be asking the questions.
Okay.
Because if you're not asking the questions, you think you have all the answers.
That's really true. But if you could be selfish for a second.
What question would I like to be asked more? Maybe what does tomorrow bring?
That's a nice one.
What is tomorrow going to bring?
I
think no matter if you have plans in place or not, I think all of us go through a day that no matter if it's planned or not, something happens in that day that you have no control over, or it's good or bad. What do you think tomorrow brings?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a good question to ask.
That's a really good one. I have one easier one.
Okay.
Might be easier, might be hard as well.
Okay.
But what have been the greatest day of your life?
Well, I've got 2 days. Both days my sons were born. Were pretty special for me. Bring in. I guess I helped bring. I helped bring them into the world. My wife did all the work there. It's a pretty special moment when you see somebody come into the world that you helped produce. Flood of emotions, and those are days I won't forget.
Awesome. Keegan, thank you so much. It was amazing conversation.
It was.
I love the fact that you dive in deep on the personal notes and also on the business perspective and how you guys go about making it better every single time, and talking about your employees and really making them feel like they are part of the family and they are part of something bigger. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I feel this might be not the last time.
No, I hope not. I really appreciate you having me on. I think it's a great opportunity. It's great questions. A couple stumped me, and a couple they were great questions. It comes back to that self-reflection and self-awareness. It's good to go through these things and start talking and realizing where you can do better, or what are the holdbacks, or what you're doing well. So it's a really, really great moment to be on this show, and looking forward to the next one 100%, Matt.
Thank you, Keegan.
And it's a wrap. We dare you. If you are bold enough, hit subscribe, repost the rebellion, and don't miss out on next week's episode. It's going to be bloody brilliant. See you on the next one.